Welcome to this deep dive. We are so glad you're here with us. Today we're taking a pretty fascinating journey, acting as your personal guides through some truly timeless material.
Yeah, really timeless. It's great to be here.
It's just you, me, and our resident expert sitting down to explore an ancient framework that, surprisingly enough, maps perfectly onto the chaos of modern life. We have a really compelling stack of sources in front of us today.
We do.
We're looking at the ancient text of Proverbs chapter 9. These are writings traditionally attributed to King Solomon, and we're looking at that alongside a modern application guide that, strips away all the antiquity to reveal what these themes actually mean for you today.
A brilliant combination of source material, really. You have this highly poetic, thousands of years old text on one hand, and then a very sharp, very practical framework on the other. It takes these ancient metaphors and just forces us to look at how we operate on a daily basis.
And that actually brings us to the mission of today's deep dive. We're going to summarize this ancient biblical text, which sets up this stunning contrast between two symbolic figures, wisdom and folly. But we aren't going to leave it in the past.
Right, that wouldn't do us much good.
Exactly. We're going to rapidly translate these ancient metaphors into modern life applications. The goal is to cover the core of this ancient wisdom and its contemporary relevance in the first half of our conversation. Then we're going to dive deep into how this knowledge can specifically strengthen your trust and your relationship with God.
Which is vital because the core concept here is arguably more urgent now than it was when it was first recorded. I mean, we live in an era of unprecedented noise.
Yeah, we absolutely do. So here is the hook, the reality that you are living right this very second. Right now, two distinct voices are shouting for your attention.
Literally shouting.
One is offering you a feast of life, preparation, and profound understanding. The other is offering you the cheap thrill of stolen secrets, promises of quick pleasure that the sources warn will lead to complete ruin. The central question of this deep dive is, which one are you actually listening to?
It's the ultimate question. Proverbs 9 paints such a vivid, almost cinematic picture of this choice. It really strips away all the gray areas we usually use to justify our bad decisions.
Okay, let's unpack this. We need to set the scene. In our source text, Proverbs chapter 9 serves as the grand conclusion to the opening section of the entire book of Proverbs. It acts as the climax of this early teaching, presenting a highly memorable contrast between two symbolic women. So who exactly is this first figure?
The first figure is personified wisdom. Solomon portrays her as a noble, highly proactive host, and the imagery used here is incredibly deliberate. It opens by stating she has built her house and she's hewn out her 7 pillars.
Now wait, what do 7 pillars mean in this ancient context? Is that just like an architectural detail, or is there something deeper there?
Oh, it's entirely symbolic. In ancient Near Eastern literature, the number 7 represents completeness, perfection, and absolute stability.
Okay.
So by hewing out 7 pillars, wisdom isn't just throwing up a temporary tent or a quick lean-to. She has constructed an estate meant to withstand literally any storm. It represents a worldview and a life built on absolute, unshakable truth.
That structural integrity is fascinating. And the preparation doesn't stop with the architecture, right?
Not at all. She prepares a lavish, massive feast. The passage details how she has killed her beasts, mingled her wine, and furnished her table.
Mingled wine, that implies she's mixing it with spices, right? Like she's going out of her way to prepare a premium, intoxicatingly rich experience.
Precisely. It denotes extreme care, wealth, and readiness. Everything is perfectly set. And once the preparation is complete, she sends her maidens out to the highest places of the city.
To get maximum visibility.
Yeah, exactly. She wants this message broadcast from the rooftops where the absolute maximum number of people can hear it.
So she's putting in all this heavy lifting, preparing this incredibly rich environment. Who is she actually trying to invite?
She cries out to the simple, which in this context means the inexperienced, the open-minded, those who haven't yet committed to a path, and to those who lack understanding.
So people who are just starting out.
Right. Her message is an open, generous invitation. Come, eat of my bread and drink of the wine which I have mingled. But it comes with a strict directive. She tells them, forsake the foolish and live, and go in the way of understanding.
So she's offering life, but she demands a clean break from foolishness. It's not a casual drop-in, it's a real commitment.
It is a beautiful, robust image of preparation and generosity. But the narrative abruptly pivots right there. We are immediately introduced to the complete opposite. The profile of folly, or the foolish woman.
So if wisdom is out there building mansions and perfectly seasoning a feast, What is folly doing during all of this?
Folly is doing practically nothing. Solomon describes her as clamorous, simple, and knowing absolutely nothing. While wisdom builds a permanent structure with 7 pillars, folly just sits at the door of her house.
Just sitting there.
Yeah, she takes a seat in the high places of the city.
She hasn't done the work. She hasn't prepared anything of substance at all.
She's just taking up space in a prominent position, making a lot of noise. She's essentially a grifter.
Here's where it gets really interesting. If you look at who folly targets, she calls out to passengers who are just trying to go right on their ways. These are people minding their own business, trying to walk a straight path, and she actively intercepts them.
Yeah.
And she uses the exact same opening line as wisdom. Whoso is simple, let him turn in hither.
That is the crucial insight. Destructive choices rarely look like monsters. They disguise themselves as legitimate opportunities. Folly mimics the call of wisdom because she knows the inexperienced are looking for direction. But her actual pitch is entirely different. Where wisdom offered bread and spiced wine representing substance, truth, and nourishment, folly offers a seduction. She whispers, "Stolen waters are sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant."
She isn't selling the quality of the food, she's selling the thrill of the taboo.
Folly's pitch works because it leverages basic human psychology. The stolen water isn't sweet because it's better water. It's sweet because of the dopamine hit of the transgression.
Right.
Proverbs recognize the appeal of the forbidden thousands of years before modern psychology formally named it. It's the allure of getting away with something.
But that thrill is a massive bait and switch, according to the sources. The passage delivers this chilling context at the very end of the chapter. Folly's guests, the people who fall for this psychological trick about sweet stolen waters, are completely blind to their reality.
They have no idea.
The verse states, "But he knoweth not that the dead are there, and that her guests are in the depths of hell."
It is a stark, terrifying image. The house looks appealing from the outside. The offer sounds exciting, edgy, exclusive. But you walk through those doors and it is literally a graveyard.
Yeah.
It perfectly encapsulates the ancient understanding of how temptation operates. It promises immediate gratification, but completely obscures the fatal long-term cost.
So we have these two hosts, wisdom and folly, both screaming for our attention. But the middle of this chapter, verses 7 through 9, acts as a sort of diagnostic tool. It's a litmus test for which path you are currently standing on. And it revolves entirely around how you handle being told that you are wrong.
This raises an important question for you, the listener. When someone critiques you, what happens internally? Because according to this ancient framework, your reaction to correction is the single greatest indicator of your wisdom.
The text lays out two scenarios. First, you try to correct a scorner or a wicked person. The warning is that if you reprove a scorner, you get shame for yourself, you get a blot, and the scorner will actually hate you for it. The foolish person views correction as a violent attack. They respond with hostility, defensiveness.
But look at the second scenario. If you give instruction and rebuke to a wise man, he will love you. He will become even wiser, and a just man will increase in learning. The wise person recognizes that correction, even when it stings the ego, is a gift. It's the raw material required for growth.
Let me play devil's advocate for a second here. In our current culture, unshakable confidence is essentially a currency. You're told to trust your gut, ignore the haters, project absolute certainty. How does this ancient text reconcile the modern demand for relentless confidence with this demand to just accept criticism?
It separates true confidence from fragile arrogance. The scorner projects certainty, but their ego is so fragile that any critique feels like a mortal threat. True confidence, the kind built on those 7 pillars, is secure enough to say, I am flawed, I have blind spots, and your critique might actually help me reinforce my foundation. Humility isn't weakness here. It's an engine for continuous improvement.
I love that.
What's fascinating here is how the text grounds this humility in a much larger foundational principle. Verse 10 is arguably the most famous line in this entire document. It states, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the holy is understanding."
That word fear often trips modern readers up. We associate it with terror or cowering in a corner.
Right.
How does being terrified of God lead to wisdom?
In this ancient Hebrew context, the fear of the Lord doesn't mean terror at all. It means a profound reverence, a consuming awe, and a deep respect for God's ultimate authority. It means recognizing that you are not the center of the universe. There is a supreme moral authority above you, and his design for reality is not subject to your personal opinions.
So it's the ultimate reality check.
Yes. The argument is that True understanding is built entirely on this foundation of reverence. Without it, you might be highly intelligent, you might be incredibly clever at navigating the world, but you cannot possess true, enduring wisdom.
And when you do build on that foundation, when you choose to walk into wisdom's house, there is an incredible promise. Verse 11 claims that through wisdom, your days will be multiplied and the years of your life will be increased. It's a promise of a deeply fulfilling, enduring existence.
So we've summarized the ancient text, but the real value of the modern application guide we're reviewing is how it forces us to map these ancient metaphors onto our daily routines.
So what does this all mean for you today? How do we bridge the gap between ancient mansions with 7 pillars and the reality of commuting, working, and living in the modern world? Our sources extract some sharp principles that weave right into what we've just discussed. Let's start with those competing voices.
Just as those two ancient hosts were calling from the highest places of the city, we have an entire attention economy screaming from our modern high places. Think about the algorithms shaping your social media feeds, cultural trends, political ideologies, and relentless advertising. They are all stationed at the highest vantage points, intercepting you while you're just trying to go about your day.
They're essentially asking you to turn to their house and feast at their table. And the terrifying part is how closely folly's voice mimics wisdom.
Exactly. Not all advice or information leads to a healthy, meaningful life. You must actively evaluate which influences deserve your attention. Are you scrolling through substantive knowledge that builds your foundation? Or are you gorging on the stolen waters of outrage, gossip, and superficial comparison?
Which brings us back to that litmus test of correction. The modern application guide notes that in our lives, personal and professional growth depends heavily on feedback loops.
If you act like the ancient scorner, if you dismiss every negative performance review, if you tune out your spouse when they point out a flaw, if you insulate yourself with people who only agree with you, you remain completely stagnant. The modern guide defines a healthy response as a 3-step process. Listening without interrupting, reflecting objectively on the criticism, and actively adjusting your behavior. That separates the truly successful frog from those who just make a lot of noise.
It's about trusting the process of growth over the comfort of being right. But we have to address the temptation aspect because folly's pitch is incredibly resilient. Stolen waters are sweet. Today, folly's invitation might look like a brilliant, albeit slightly unethical business shortcut. It might look like an addictive behavior that temporarily numbs stress, or a dishonest relationship that provides an immediate ego boost.
The tactical approach of folly hasn't changed in 3 millennia. Destructive choices appear thrilling. They might even seem like the most logical, convenient option in a high-pressure moment. But the ancient warning remains absolute. You might be enjoying the dopamine hit of the stolen waters, but you don't realize you are building a house in a graveyard.
It is the compounding nature of these decisions that really stands out to me. You are either heading to the house of life or the house of ruin. And it isn't usually one giant catastrophic leap that destroys a life. It's the slow accumulation of tiny choices.
Like compound interest in finance, but applied to your character. Disciplined study slowly builds towering knowledge. Consistent, painful honesty builds unshakable trust. Responsible financial habits create generational stability. Conversely, repeated small compromises, a tiny lie here, a minor ethical breach there, gradually create a labyrinth of massive, complex problems. You are always walking toward one of those 2 houses.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we arrive at the core goal of this deep dive. We've unpacked the text and the modern applications, but how does all of this actually apply to your relationship with God? How does it strengthen your trust in Him?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it all funnels back to that central anchor. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Recognizing God as the ultimate moral authority is the absolute starting point of a meaningful life. In contemporary terms, this means acknowledging our moral responsibility and accountability to our Creator.
So why is that specific grounding so essential? Why can't we just rely on human intellect and logic to build a good life?
Because human intelligence without moral grounding is incredibly dangerous. We see this throughout history and in our modern world. Intelligence alone, unguided by transcendent moral truth, can easily be used for selfish, manipulative, or immensely harmful purposes. You can be a brilliant CEO, a genius engineer, or a masterful communicator, and still use those gifts to build a house of folly. You can optimize your way right into the graveyard.
That makes perfect sense. The intellect is just a tool. It needs a blueprint to build something sustainable.
Exactly. And trusting God provides that blueprint. When you choose to trust God's framework, especially when those stolen waters look incredibly appealing, or when a deceptive shortcut seems like the smartest strategic move. You are engaging in profound trust. You are deciding that God's eternal perspective is more reliable than your immediate desires.
It builds a very specific kind of resilience. You are developing an unwavering respect for justice and truth, even when it's inconvenient. You are trusting that his rules aren't arbitrary restrictions designed to keep you from having fun. They are structural pillars designed to protect you from the hidden traps that lead to ruin.
It requires humility to admit that our limited perspective might be flawed. Choosing his wisdom over folly's shortcuts ultimately ensures a stable, meaningful future. It aligns your daily habits with the very fabric of reality as God designed it.
Let's bring this all together. Here are your core takeaways from today's deep dive. Both wisdom and folly are loud, and they both know exactly how to get your attention. Their invitations are appealing in vastly different ways. But only one provides structural integrity. Your job is to choose your influences carefully. You must fight to remain teachable, viewing correction as a tool rather than a threat. You need to anchor your decisions in the strong moral principles of God's authority, and above all, you must look beyond the immediate dopamine hit of a shortcut to consider the long-term reality of your choices.
I think the most striking aspect of Proverbs 9 is that despite all the preparation wisdom does, she completely respects human agency. She has hewn the pillars, prepared the feast, and issued the call. The table is perfectly set, but she does not drag anyone inside. The final decision is entirely up to the individual. You have to willingly walk through her door.
It's an open invitation waiting for your response. But before we wrap up, I want you to consider something that goes beyond what we've discussed today. We've talked extensively about human voices, cultural trends, and algorithms mimicking the call of wisdom. But think about this. As we rapidly enter an era where artificial intelligence can synthesize information and mimic human reasoning with flawless precision, the line between the authentic voice of wisdom and an incredibly convincing synthetic imitation of folly is about to get much blurrier. When the voices calling from the high places aren't even human anymore, how will you know which house you are walking into?
That is a staggering thought. It makes the necessity of an internal moral compass, that fear of the Lord, more critical than ever.
It really does. So we leave you with this final vital question. How will you apply this information in your life?